This show has become so 24-esque. It is one cut to black with a clock in the background away from jumping the shark here on Future Please. A heinous trip at Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
Boy, I'm exhausted. That was a lot of story for one episode. I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, what episode of Enterprise are we referring to right now?
We're watching Season 3, Episode 23, Countdown. First aired 19th of May, 2004. Written by Andre Baramis and Chris Black. Directed by none other than Robert Duncan McNeil, which I believe this is his last directorial job for Enterprise and therefore the rest of Berman-era Star Trek. But man, what a fucking banger to go out on.
They certainly gave him a lot to do.
He did
My
it, though.
God.
And I went into this knowing, like, okay, this is going to be a Robert Duncan McNeil. What style am I seeing? Is there any real takeaway? In the past, we've said, like, you know, you take your average David Livingston and then you hold that up against something McNeil did, and it seems like there's a little bit more pop. There's a little bit more presence on the screen. There's more coming out of the actors. He energizes them. And I don't know if I could say I saw that necessarily, just so much motion. This is a moving picture at all times. There's no still shots. There's no chance to catch your breath. This almost bordered on being exhausting to watch, but in a great way.
Yeah, like it's fast paced. I mean, it is moving. Every second of this is thick. There's like two scenes I think I can point to where they even take a second, and they're, you know, very emotionally based. Other than that, it's go, 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 go. But hey, they're almost done. This is the second to last episode of the season. Like, we'll wrap it up. Let's go. Like, we got plot lines.
But for real though, man, there's no fat on this thing. It's like if you took season 1 and you distilled an entire season down to one episode and made it a good episode, it's this thing. Like, it's crazy. And there's points
You
by
doubted.
the end.
You doubted that this show could get good. So
I'm not even talking plot. I'm just saying I'm impressed that they made the episode feel as long as it did. Because by the time the Death Star goes into the boom tube, I figured that was the end of the episode. And there was still another like 8 or 10 minutes to go of like legit content. So it took a while before I was able to start generating notes, because I was just absorbed by what I was seeing and what was going on. And this kind of, it's raised concerns for me for our future with Deep Space Nine, because our fear has been that if we watch a show that is too good, it's going to be hard to generate good podcast content. And I think that that's the point we're at right now, where wherever Deep Space Nine starts getting for real, it has to be somewhat on par with what we're seeing here. Like, this is great TV. So I want to see how this podcast goes and what our end product looks like, because there's nothing to joke about here. Or I don't know, maybe there's a little.
Well, we'll find some things to joke about here. I'm quite confident, but yes, I've always had a sort of guarded opinion of us reviewing DS9. I mean, we're going to definitely do it, and be not afraid if you are one of our regular listeners. We're not shirking from our duty to finish what we started. But,
unless the aliens present themselves and like there's a cool chance to see the galaxy.
We're all done. We're all done anyway. So, you know,
or they kill us. Yeah, I was saying we might get like a cool trip around the galaxy.
Oh, that would be nice. I would like that,
to go to the slave colonies.
Yeah, well, as long as they're nice, right? If they're nice slave colonies.
I don't want to go to the Westworld slave colony.
The quality of the show gives us different things to talk about. I think people do like it when we dig deep. You know, one of the things we consistently hear from our listeners is that the rewrites are their favorite parts. Sometimes those rewrites are funny. So a lot of times, though, those rewrites are very
angry,
serious, very dramatic. So I'm not concerned about content, although the tone of the show might change, because, like you said, this is thick. There's so much I want to talk about. The characters, the villains, tremendous amount of material here to dissect. But the first thing I need to bring up to you, Peter, is that we have failed. We have failed in a material way about one of our favorites. Who was our favorite Voyager character over the course of the whole run? Who was always
Neelix.
there for us? Who was
Neelix.
always no, Neelix was bad in season 1. Okay, we forget.
Always there for us. The
Always there for
Doctor.
us. No, who was from the very first episode to the very last? There was one man who was a consistent,
Smoldering
smoldering
Catcher.
presence. Yes, smoldering catcher guy. Right?
Listen, man. You're telling me you're putting Smoldering Catcher above the EMH minus Virtuoso, which was quite the black mark on.
Yeah. There was never a virtuoso that held down smoldering catcher guy.
True.
When we were referring to Ensign Ayala, a background character from Voyager who was played by this, well, smoldering gentleman who wore catcher gear when he was doing his Maquis thing, and it was really ridiculous. Did you know that we've seen him multiple times in Enterprise and have not caught it?
What?
Yes. He was one of the Desert Lacrosse players in Desert Crossing. Okay. Forgivable, right? Forgivable.
I thought we called that one out.
He's shown up 4 times in season 3, and we didn't know. You know why?
Don't tell me he's a Xindi.
He is.
Oh, no.
He's the Xindi insectoid stand-in for the CGI. So they had him, there's a picture of it on his Memory Alpha page, in the super basic CGI outfit, and he was the guy who had to act out being the insectoid when they were doing the scenes.
This guy, first of all, he looks great.
Does.
Second of all, he can hold down a scene just being a background dude. Like, he's got a good presence for camera. We know he's a team player, right?
Yeah.
That's how these background actors get time, is they're there for work. They don't piss the directors off. You're going to regulate this guy to being a fucking CGI puppet when this season specifically, where all the Xindi reptilian dudes show up, you've got fucking Makos, which, if Space Commando isn't a role made specifically for Smoldering Catcher, I don't know what is.
Yeah, what a perfect job to have given him all season, to be the heavy in the background who occasionally shoots at things.
And especially because it'd be so ironic, be like, this is ridiculous. You know, I know this guy from Voyager. He was always the guy waiting in the back to punch somebody, and now they got him here. Like, that could have been our Cardassian hallway of this show. How infuriating to squander the potential of Smoldering Catcher.
Yeah. He could have been his own character's great-grandparent.
Yeah.
And could have established in-universe continuity of Ayala's Starfleet service, all the way back to being on the NX-01. There could have been a whole book written about how, you know, he went into Starfleet.
Speaking of rewrites.
There it is.
So Smoldering Catcher's great-grandfather, they could have established through this season, was a raging xenophobe who was just that Mako that was ready to tell you that the only good bug is a dead bug, and how, you know, he's gonna flay these lizards and fry them up like gators. Maybe Ayala is actually Cajun, who knows, right? And he could have really just gone so hard on fighting these guys that it becomes a concern at some point that his bloodline will have a hard time meshing with aliens, which could have led to his great-great-great-grandson, who was also a participant of Starfleet, quitting Starfleet over Cardassian stuff because he wanted to continue fighting Cardassians, thus ending up in the Maquis,
yes,
in the Delta Squadron, blah, blah,
the Ayala family could have just been too hard, too uncivilized, too murderous to remain within the Federation shackles. We could have seen the origin story of that.
Jonathan, as you flesh out the rest of Season 8 for Voyager...
Yes, JK.
Feel free to rub this one in that Ayala's... if fucking Garrett and Robert Duncan McNeil are going to talk out of their asses to what they think Season 8 should have been, you are well within your bounds to retcon one of these Mako dudes as Ayala's great, whatever, how many great
I will say, though, JK did a fantastic job of giving Ayala a really, great scene as he left. of like had this great life waiting for him. Like he got to leave. He's gonna visit his family. He's just happy to be home.
It was great, but it could be better by
It could be,
having
yeah.
him go home and they could discuss the rich history of Starfleet service and predating that Mako service.
An alien murder.
Yeah. You can have that one for free.
Yeah. We're giving him up here.
I'm divorcing myself of any sort of intellectual rights off of other people's characters.
Speaking of aliens you want to murder, though, Hoshi, she's in the teaser and she has a terrible time this episode. This is not a fun one for Hoshi. She is where you don't want to be. She is captured on a reptilian ship with this guy, Dolam, who has murdered his own grandchildren.
Just stabbed Degra and said how he was going to murder Degra's kids.
And as we had sussed out last episode, Hoshi is on the ship because Dolam's plan to be able to launch the Xindi Death Star is to crack one of the codes, and who better than the linguistic genius who's great at ciphers. And to Hoshi's credit, she is she keeps it real over the course of this to the degree that she can. She cooperates not an inch.
Props to Dolan. What a great leader to recognize talent as quickly as he did. On top of being a ruthless, vicious motherfucker, he is great from an HR standpoint in terms of recruitment, maybe not for retention. She's in this interrogation chamber, laying on the floor. He comes in, creepy, pseudo-rapey vibes touching her face. You're going to work for me. You're going to crack the codes. You're going to be the reason why the Death Star is able to eliminate humanity. Neither you can work with us, or I'm going to pump fucking parasites into your brain. They're going to eat your shit until you're like drooling from the mouth and doing what I tell you to do. He slaps her around a little bit. Major points off for her. And granted, she was under possession of a space ghost, so maybe she doesn't have... I don't know. Did they remember during the Space Ghost episode what they were doing? No, because their consciousness was transported somewhere else.
Correct.
They were dreaming of ponies and hanging out with their old girlfriends at the pool. Still, I know it's within her physical ability to lay on the floor and bicycle kick aliens in the dick. She did it to Phlox. If only she had done it to Reptile. I mean, we could have had our second Mortal Kombat episode for the series. Katana versus Reptile. Fight! She fights, and then they trap her in this torture dentist chair and come over with like a fucking hot glue gun to burn some worms into her head. And then we go bring the surgeons, get the brain parasites, pin, torture, screaming, space banjo, been a long time. The music has never been more jarring, both with the lead-in off of her getting worms shot into her fucking skull.
After and then she screams bloody murder too, like really goes for like this is the most horrific pain I've ever felt. I need to make you feel it.
Yeah. And then like I forget where the episode ends exactly. But again, here comes impending doom. Boom, 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 boom. That fucking Perfect Strangers soft jazz outro they have.
Could you imagine Cousin Balky on the Enterprise?
Yeah, I mean he's got a Brett Spiner vibe, right? He could be he could be some sort of Noonien Singh relative, right?
Yeah, you're right. You could be Noonien Singh's like dumb cousin.
I'll do you one better. Right? Let's keep it real. No sweeping gestures of your mind's eye. Let's go ahead and just drop him in as a late season Voyager additional Q.
Okay, like he's just gone completely over the hill, right?
No,
like,
just another silly Q to get in and fuck around on screen and run that legacy into the trash.
I don't know. Q2. When you're an actor so bad, you decide that you want to become a diplomat so that no one will ever see you on screen ever again. That's the level of acting we ultimately got with Qs. So.
Did you catch the Langoliers?
No.
Stephen King's Langoliers. It was a made-for-TV movie. That's the one where basically the plane flies out of time, and once you've passed the present, Langoliers eat the past, so this terrible CG, it looks like flying turds, are eating reality in this. Like anything Stephen King, it starts great and then it's complete garbage by the end. But anyways, Brandon Pinchot was this rich yuppie exec that was caught on the plane who goes crazy. And that dude actually does a nice job selling I'm rich and privileged and empowered, and ultimately I've given up on life and I'm languish. Like he actually would have been a pretty cool I want to die Q. That's not a terrible idea. I would do that. Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up. Never heard of that.
Not worth your time, but it might be worth a podcast. I don't know. No, those things are like fucking 8 made for TV episodes. That's a long. Maybe when we're in the retirement home, we'll look that one up. What do you think the oldest podcast is out there?
Like the oldest, like the one that's been going on the longest.
No, like the oldest hosts.
Oh, there's got to be some ancient boomers doing podcasts somewhere, like some tech savvy boomer somewhere. Some
Not
80-year-old
boomers, man. I'm talking like some fucking World War II talking about the shit. I don't know. All right, here. This is a great episode. We need to get into it. So she is about to get worms in her head, and then Space Banjo, and then we cut back over to. I don't even know what, man. I didn't take fucking notes. I was just swept up by the great pacing. I forgot I was doing a podcast. I thought I was just joy watching.
So they collect the shuttle pod that went and collected the thing from the sphere, and we get caught up. All the characters get caught up with each other. Like, what happened here? The insectoids and the reptilians stole the Death Star. What happened with you?
No mention of Dagra. That sucks, man. I thought you were a homies, Trip. Come on.
We've got this sphere brain. We need to analyze it immediately, and that's when we get Major Hayes. Major Hayes shows up, comes down the shuttle pod, looking around for his guy, Corporal Hawkins, the dude whose terrible acting shields went down last week. Ripped him, and is like, where's Corporal Hawkins?" And Reed has to say, "Yeah, he's dead. He got by the fucking security system of this thing we stole." And as we've seen all season, Hayes just does not like that Reed keeps getting his dudes killed. Like, he's not a fan. He's like, there's a lot of KIA on the missions you go on, man. Like,
yeah, my guys too. Like, let's talk about this. Your whole thing is that we're great Makos, but we're not really space marines. But your security force has more experience in space, which would mean wearing spacesuits. You got a spacesuit mission, which would have been great for one of your dudes, but for some fucking reason you brought my guy, and wouldn't you know it, he's dead. Now, Hayes isn't like outwardly shitty, but he's
professionally shitty, which is always has been his MO for most of the season, and it's why we like him more, right? Like, Stephen Culp plays a military officer better. He plays the character Reed should be. Bottom line. And when they're on screen together, it's very noticeable how much better Culp is at playing the kind of character Reed is ultimately supposed to be, because Reed sucks.
I also feel like Culp being there doing the military thing makes what's Reed's actor's name?
Dominic Keating.
Makes Keating aware of his own shortcomings.
Yeah. Like, he almost gets defensive as an actor.
And I feel like he starts overcompensating his portrayal of Reed, and it gets worse. Again, this guy is not a bad actor, and I don't think is necessarily a bad screen presence. It's the wrong fit. He should have been a science officer. I said that in season 2, and I'm going to say it again here. This was a bad casting decision. This character does not work. The character works in a different role. Put Reed as a person with Reed's background as a science officer that got displaced by DePaul. Great. Expecting me to believe that this guy is some sort of a military professional. Ridiculous.
And it probably has a lot to do with the fact Culp played that guy on Jag for as long as he did, because that's like how he got famous. He was like a semi-regular or regular character on Jag. He played like a military officer consistently for years. So he knows how to do that on a performance level. Dominic Keating's just some fucking British stage actor, right? Like, he doesn't know. And you put them two together, and it's just like, well, someone's got to figure it out and someone doesn't.
Meanwhile, while they are trying to begin analyzing the sphere brain on the ship, we find out that Archer has flown back down to the surface of the avian outpost where the Zindi Council of Doom had been meeting. And he is now going to meet up with what remains of his ally base in the wake of Degra's death. And that is the other Zindi primate, who I believe you said self-named himself as Deepak.
Correct.
The Arboreal.
Jannar.
Noticeably absent are anybody that required CGI.
We can keep that to a minimum.
Which, they do bust out. This is crazy CGI in this.
Yeah. Well, this got an Emmy. This got an Emmy for best effects that year.
Yeah. So the aquatics, our SeaWorld guys, they are very slow to come to a decision. And this is to a detriment of Archer's desires, but it's also a saving grace because we find out that their cautionary decision-making process almost thwarted the weapon's creation in the first place. Their slow hand made them the suitable choice of who to build the weapon, thus keeping it out of insectoid and reptilian design, at which point there would be no safeguards against it, because we'll come to find out, or actually we already know, to fire the weapon to prime the Death Star, you need to have 3 of the 5 codes present. And they've got the insectoid, they've got the reptilian, but that's it. And Deepak seems pretty content to just let things chill out. He said that Hoshi got kidnapped, but it's not the end of the world, or so he thinks.
Archer determines relatively fast. In fact, I think in that conversation, like, oh no, they stole Hoshi because they intend to crack the code. We don't have a lot of time. We need to convince the SeaWorld people to back our play, because as they assess the tactical circumstances, the avian and primate ships are just don't have enough juice to take on the insectoids and the reptilians. It kind of goes back to some of the stuff we talked about last week. Each of these races has like a focus, something they're good at, and the avian, or rather the arboreals, they tend to be pretty chill. They're not warlike. The primates are more scientific. Neither of them are really down to fight on even terms, but those rich ass SeaWorld people, they have apparently the shit hot starships of the Zindi race. They got these giant, floating tanks that also apparently have the best weapons.
Listen, when you have to launch an entire swimming pool into space, you're going to come out with great engines. And also, you need to have pretty good hulls so all your space juices don't float out into space, and that gives you good armor. And I don't know, I guess it's buy 2, get 1 free, so you get the good guns as well. And it does to the design department what they hate, and that's force them to actually make some new starships. You can't just fucking re-roll some old Klingassian warbirds or whatever and throw
Let's
those.
take a second to talk about the Zindi ship designs, though. Great job making them look like their race as well. You've got the reptilian ships look like they have scales. The insectoid ships look like they have bug stalks. It's all subtle, though. The amphibian ships are much bigger and they have more like sort of swoopy, flowing design. The primate ship is kind of utilitarian, and the arboreal ship has got a kind of big sort of swooping wings. So I like it. I like that they made the design aesthetic match the overall design of the characters.
And if nothing else, it's helpful for these space fights so you can just see who exactly is doing what.
Yeah, it does actually make it more easier to follow, I'll say. Not necessarily easy, but you can see what's going on. Archer ultimately makes his pitch to the aquatics, who have apparently learned how to use speak and spell. And so they're talking to him finally. And he ultimately convinces them to back his play by saying they have figured out a way to destroy the sphere network, which is what T'Pol and Trip are working on.
The Zindi aren't stupid. The Zindi have to be aware of the space blob from Harbinger.
Right.
And Archer's key to this entire conversation is what have the Guardians, aka the Sphere Builders, told you, and what are the questions that you should realistically have that you've never been able to get answers to, and why is it the Guardians haven't had anything to say about that stuff? And again, it's because the Guardians are the ones creating the problem, the dilemma. And to your perception, all of these spheres are invulnerable, impenetrable facts of life. And now I have a way to destroy these fucking things. And that's an interesting proposition, because either you can just destroy it scot-free and be done and be happy, or you can start getting rid of the space goo invasion and then potentially prompt the Guardians to be like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Stop. And you say, listen, this stuff's killing us. Why do you care if we're stopping it? Clearly, you really are the cause of this, and you are the bad guy after all. So it's enough value that when Archer says it, the SeaWorld guys stop mid-flick of their tail and turn around and go say, what?
Yeah, I'm interested in what you have to say. And they don't spend much time emphasizing on it when it comes to reptilians and the insectoids, but they still touch on the fact that even they agree Archer is right. Like the insectoids explicitly at the end are like, "Oh, I guess Archer was probably right about them, huh?" I'm thinking maybe we've been all fucked up here.
Real quick, you're talking about right before Dolam turns on him.
Correct.
Were you getting subtitles on the insectoid conversation?
Yes.
Oh, really? I did not see that. I was just going by what Dolam was saying. My impression off of that was that the insectoids became aware that he stabbed Degra and that he was acting in bad faith. What? We're jumping way ahead, but I don't want to forget about this. So what do they say there exactly?
The insectoid counselor.
Oh, that's the counselor?
Yes, the counselor says, "Yeah, kind of crazy that those anomalies suddenly showed up and favored only us, right? Wouldn't that make Archer correct that the sphere builders are the guardians? They're the reason why all of this is happening?" And Dolan tries to defend it by saying, like, no, hey, listen, Archer also started a civil war, between the Zindi, and that's when the insectoid counselor says, yeah,
I figured he was
Archer,
talking about Degra started the Civil War with his
no,
Zindi.
he was saying Archer did, and then the insectoid counselor says Archer didn't kill Degra, you did, to Dolan. And said, I'm sorry, you're the one who started the Civil War. So the insectoids
Keeping it real there at the
kept
end.
it real right at the end of like, I think you're the bad guy now, and that's why Dolan's like, well, it's a good thing I don't need you. Like, kablam.
There is such a bad habit. If there's anything that I'm going to turn on season 3 and kind of shit on, this is might as well just be a fucking horror movie plot device, not device, but like a horror movie flowchart. Whereas as soon as a character's problem is resolved,
Yes.
and it seems like someone has a chance to become good or happy, they instantly fucking die. Degra, spoiler alert, Hayes, fucking the insectoid guy. Like, I'm afraid to see who else is gonna fucking get it. Like, will be anybody say, whoa, listen, I was wrong, you were right, and I.
Don't have too much personal growth on Enterprise. You will get killed.
Yeah, I want to just say, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye. You were right about that thing, but I just want to let you know, I used your toothbrush to scrub my balls.
Yeah, just to put a little more tension in the room so you can stay on the show.
I'm never going to say I was sorry about it. I kicked your dog, Archer. I kicked your fucking dog. Why would you do that?
You see Porthos go, like, oh yeah.
But Porthos looks at him like, dude, I know you're just saying you kicked me so the fucking the final destination Reaper can't come in and get you. The season 3 Grim Reaper can't get you for making peace.
One of
That's
the
the
few scenes we get in the episode that isn't just driving the plot forward is actually between Trip and T'Pol as they're working on like figuring out a way to blow up all the spheres. And T'Pol is being just a real bitch. And, it's not Trip's fault. Trip is like, well, that's not going to work. We'll just blow up the ship. That won't work. That'll also blow up the ship. We got to figure out something else. And T'Pol's getting real annoyed that he's being a negative Nancy. I was like, well, maybe you'll come up with an idea, huh? How about that, Trip? And he's had enough of her attitude at one point and goes like, listen, I don't know. You just haven't had a chance to meditate. I don't know what's bothering you, but I'm going to go to engineering and I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And that is when, for the very first time on all of Star Trek Enterprise, in order to get him to not leave, T'Pol says Trip, says his name to get him to stop, and is like, I'm having problems and I'm going to need your help.
Trip.
Finally crosses the bridge we've both been talking about. Like, only you can help me with this.
Trip, I need to tell you something, but I need you to promise me that you won't get mad, / concerned, / snitch the captain or tell anybody else. Do you promise? Well, that's a lot of stipulations.
How illegal is this thing you're about to tell me?
Yeah,
it's very illegal. It is the most illegal thing.
You didn't like kill somebody or steal some technology from an alien or any of this other stuff that we always do to, like, break the Prime Directive. No, I've been doing space meth.
I've been smoking the space crack rock. I got a problem.
I'm addicted to space crack. And so real quick, would Trellium D protect against the space blob, or do you think that's too much anomaly for even the Trellium D to keep up with?
It looks like it was too much anomaly for the Trillium D because these ships were all probably lined in it. They all got fucked up.
I'd have to think they were lined in it. Yeah, and they got fucking wrecked. So yeah, her inclusion in the prevention of a D being applied on that would not have mattered. We get to see inside the Death Star, which is this wonderfully busy yet janky looking set piece. It's a kind of this big open chasm. It's hollow, but then there's all these, like, it's very Borg cubey, right? I think that's really what they're. It's that dark classic, steel. It's the green lights.
It's the classic Berman Trek cheap set decoration stuff, like to a T, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything you've seen since 1980, whatever, and TNG,
smoke.
Oh yeah,
dudes in little alcoves,
stuff from Spencer's Gift, all over the place.
All over the place. In fact, maybe that should have been our skit. Was
we have to make a second run to Spencer's Gifts to decorate this set.
Berman has to go up to Robert Duncan McNeil and say, "Listen, here, we're gonna do it right now, Robbie. I saw your workups for the inside of the Death Star. I'm very concerned about the lack of Spencer's Gifts knickknacks in there."
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not use enough pieces of flair? It's a minimum.
Robbie, I don't know if you got the production notes.
I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. I should have known. It's been a while since I've been on cast.
That's how you as a cast. What you need to know about is Paramount, myself specifically, I own a lot of stock in Spencer's Gifts, and when we record these episodes,
okay, I didn't know, sir. I'll make another run right away. You know what, Garrett's not doing anything. I'll just send him. He just goes and fetches my laundry anyway. Like, that's all he does.
I figured at this point Garrett was just working at one of those. That guy's not doing anything else from here. I don't guarantee you that.
Speaking of Asians, though, frickin' Hoshi is so metal. She has got brain parasites in her, and she is not only not cooperating, she has tricked the reptilian who is watching her into thinking that she is cooperating, and instead she's making it harder to launch the weapon. And then when she gets found out, she attempts to commit suicide by jumping off the railing. Like, you can't use me to crack the code if I'm fucking dead, and tries to seppuku herself immediately.
Yeah, that's something I'm guessing that they don't really have to worry about with Xindi primates, is the obvious conclusion that I'll just fucking kill myself. So yeah, maybe having my forced labor position be next to a bottomless pit Listen, I'm from the Enterprise. If there's one thing we know about, it's falling off fucking ledges. But whether it's the cargo bay or engineering or potentially even the bridge, if there is a banister, we will fall over that at the first opportunity. Let's appreciate how far this character has come, because she was a scaredy cat.
She was.
The space spider cocoon victims from was it called Silence? Right? That's season 1 when they find the ship of everybody all webbed up and their juices being drained out. Like,
I think it was the second episode of the whole fucking show, right?
this is her fear, right? Is dying by alien hands. Now she is being pressed into labor against her will. This is all terrifying. She didn't sign up for this. Her skills are potentially being used to bring about the end of the human race. She is successfully fighting it. She's bullshitting these guys. This is stuff I guess we kind of saw back in what was Maggot Pop-Tarts.
I really only think of it as that now.
But
when she went to the Phantom of the Opera planet.
Right, like I guess we could have kind of seen the groundwork for this here if I wasn't too distracted by her hothing. And maybe at a certain level, she's mad that they abducted her before she was able to bring her collection of cocktail dresses to really sell the grift. Why has the human changed into this small band-aid of a costume? Why is she out of her uniform? She says she works better with her buttocks hanging out. But it's a real good look for her. And they figure out that she has not been helping and has in fact been making things worse after she fails to jump over the edge. And they drag her off to go get pumped full of more parasites.
Yeah, there's you don't see it. There's a second parasite wound on her head when they finally rescue her. It's like Hoshi has had the worst time
And
you
really,
could possibly have on Star Trek. Like, can you think of a character put in a worse situation than you have been kidnapped? Your skills will be, as you said, used to terminate the entire human race. They are putting parasites in your brain to rewire you long enough so that you'll cooperate. You have to fight them off, try to make it worse, and they get you with a second dose to finally get you to do it.
I mean, I would say anybody who had to act opposite of Vorik, right?
Oh, that too. Yeah, that was also like horrors beyond that, which I can describe. You're absolutely
I would
right.
say, that episode where Janeway got caught in hell, literally with a demon.
Oh yeah, the
And
one
she
it looked
died
like her dad.
100 times. Yeah, that was a
Oh
rough
yeah.
one.
Oh god.
Now, there was a couple different ways she could have had this happen to her. Had she played ball, they would have just given her the brain parasites by having her eat Jenny's ice cream.
Oh god, is that a thing?
Do you not know? So Jenny's ice cream.
I don't know about this. Oh, tell the world. I need to know this.
Wouldn't it be something if we got? No, it's public. So there's this fucking bullshit boutique ice cream place that got real big in Columbus called Jenny's Ice Cream, and everybody fell over themselves. A bunch of fucking soccer moms pretending to be foodies, and then they got like busted multiple times because their kitchen was dirty and they were giving people listeria.
Oh Jesus.
But by that point, it already caught on. So then they started having like a national kitchen make their stuff, and like all the people we know up in Chicago are all about it. And it's like a dead brand locally because everybody knows it's fucking listeria, but it's real big, I guess, at expensive ice cream place. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it.
That's local.
I've actually seen it in like grocery stores now, and it's like $9 a pint. I'm like, oh
yeah,
god,
it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and it's always like stupid flavors. That's what I like, just stupid gimmick flavors.
Butt sweat and nail clippings. Oh, cool, great. That's what I wanted. People would line up in front of that place like a new iPhone was coming out back when people cared about that. So no, yeah, Hoshi, real trooper in this episode.
Agreed, and it is really fun to see that Hoshi has gone from the scaredy cat who feared dying in space to I am willing to sacrifice my life to save humanity, and it's not close, and I've got to be pulled literally off the edge that I'm trying to throw myself off of rather than permit it to happen. So she doesn't get a lot of dialogue, but she gets a lot of things to do, and that's neat. We cut back to the Xindi planet, and the aquatics have shown up in relatively short order and said, okay, we'll throw in. But the deal is this, Archer. We will help you stop the weapon, but you have to blow up these spheres. If you've got a way to blow up these fucking spheres, that's your job. But let's go stop the weapon, and then we'll square up. Pretty fair, right? Like, we'll stop the apocalypse on you. You stop the apocalypse on us. We walk away. not necessarily a completely fair trade because there's 7 million dead humans, but best possible outcome from this point forward.
True. I also like the one bargaining point he threw in at the end of their initial one was, did the sphere builders ever tell you where you guys are going to rebuild your home?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that
Because
was
if
like
it's
the
in the
fact that like
Delphix Expanse, you know that this place is going to be a fucking cesspool. Like, you know I'm right. Um, the conflict here is that they still haven't been able to come up with a way to really destroy these spheres without blowing Enterprise up in the process. And I like Trip and T'Pol are like, well, you haven't made any hard promises on this yet. Archer's like,
just stares at him.
the fuck you mean I haven't made hard? I'm the man who sold the world right now, all right? Like, I don't care. We're getting this shit done at all costs. Zero fucks to give. Find a way to make this shit happen.
They decide to descend in mass on the sphere, coming out through all of the different the space buttholes.
When does he do the? When's the montage scene?
Like the battle montage?
No, like them getting ship prepped around the ship. I thought that was a really like one of the best. We're getting the ship ready for
Battle.
the big showdown montages I've seen in a while.
Yeah, they have this kind of spot where they breathe a little bit, where they have the dinner scene.
Yeah,
And like the we find out the galley's finally working, so Chef made steaks for everybody, and they're kind of like doing their like, okay, we're about to enter the final battle to try and save humanity. Let's all kind of like chit chat about what we're gonna do after we win. There's a funny joke where Trip's like, after we get back, I'm gonna buy drinks for everyone at Jupiter Station, and he asks like what T'Pol's mission, future, plans are, and then says, "I will allow you to buy me a drink, Commander." It was like, that's a Vulcan flirting. I like it.
what are you gonna do, Commander? Like her drug therapy. I'm gonna eat your ass, Trip. Like what?
Oh, so too far, too much. Boss is here.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Like, no.
What are you
I know we
gonna
just
do?
had a breakthrough a couple scenes ago, but no.
What are you gonna do to celebrate, DePaul? Oh, I'm gonna smoke more Terrellium D.
Once I'm home, I can just sit in my room, listen to fucking Led Zeppelin and smoke crack rock. that's
I'm gonna go back to Vulcan with Trillium D, and I'm gonna start a drug addiction, the likes of which the Vulcan society has never faced. She lays on the table that she is strongly considering formalizing her relationship with Starfleet, which would effectively make her potentially the first non-human member of Starfleet, unless someone's come on in the interim. So this is a big deal, right? This is a multi-racial Starfleet, and it's what came first, a chicken or the egg, the Utopian Starfleet or the Utopian Federation. So we'll have to see what gets founded first here. And then there's a little joke, I can't wait to see Suval's face when, you're in a uniform. Whatever. He probably go, thank God you respect yourself now.
They have the montage. The alarm goes off. It's time for battle. And when they have the fleet come out, it's guns blazing. Enterprise comes out of like the docking berth of one of the aquatic ships. And it's great for, again, adjusting for time period, adjusting that this is nearly 20 years old. Fantastic TV CGI. We have a big complex battle scene. You have a lot of kinetic, interesting things happening in the foreground and the background. You have a lot of different kinds of weapons fire. You've got ships blowing up in dynamic ways.
I'm going to jump back real quick before they get into it. They did mention at this point it's 8 months since they've been in the Expanse, so they're pushing almost a year here. There's also a follow-up between Reed and Hayes, which...
Oh, yeah, that's Hayes saying I'm 2 days from retirement. Like, it's Hayes having that unfortunately too much character development.
It's Hayes unfortunately revealing that he is not his own character so much as a side quest for Reed's character. Hayes only exists as a problem to Reed that Reed needs to find a way to bridge the gap there. And they meet up and they say, hey, listen, we need to get prepped for this. There needs to be a raiding party. I want to go over and get it. And Hayes goes, no, I think you need to be on the bridge. You are the tactical officer. We are badass space commandos. And that's where they kind of hash it out, that to a certain level, Hayes feels like Hawkins should have been under Hayes's watch and maybe he wouldn't have died. Reed saying, I look after you guys as my own. And then Hayes saying, when we came on, we felt like outsiders, but at this point, it doesn't matter what the uniforms are. This is one family, and by God, we're going to get her back. You can count on us. And I thought that was actually like some really good character development for Reed for a change. I think him working through the trauma that they laid the groundwork on back in
last week in the council, yeah.
Because he had that little outburst on the shuttlecraft.
Real fucking tired of people dying, yeah. Like, okay, we're beyond 20% now. Like
30%, I think it was. And you haven't really seen him show any human emotions up to this point, right? Like good human emotions. He's had like lust, he's had creep, but mostly he's been a standoffish prick. And this is the first time he's like, I care about the general well-being of other people, and the discomfort and death of others is something that is bothering me, and I'm going to lash out against it. And this is a nice catharsis there of like, all right, we're finally on the same page, which again is the fucking kiss of death for poor Major Hayes here.
The battle's good. Can't say much else. They're throwing in, right? They're winning. They're winning the fight, right? The aquatics are making all the difference. These ships absolutely are the king shit of the Xindi race. They are manhandling the reptiles without much of a problem. And the sphere builders finally decide they have to get involved if they're going to stop the timelines from arranging in such a way that the humans will be victorious. That's what they're saying. And they do that by activating all the spheres to send out enough anomalies into the battle to shield the Death Star so that they can get it launched, because they have broken down Hoshi's ability to resist them. Hoshi has armed the weapon now that she got a second dose of the parasites, and they are trying to get to Earth to finish this mission.
I liked Dolan had the reptilian leader has a meeting with one of the sphere builders.
Yeah, and even he's questioning the sphere builders' genuineness as well. Like, none of the Xindi races think these guys are on the level anymore.
Well, he's like, listen, I need the third code. Well, you better get the code. And he's like, why don't you fucking tell me? Like, you can go back in time. Just go back and see what their code is. And I'm assuming she's telling the truth when she says, like, we can only observe, like, major disturbances, big deals, like the generation of a code isn't, but, like, these points where we're interacting with you, like, the veil is thin enough that we can pierce it and come through and do this. So, their power is limited, and I can understand why they have avoided directly admitting as much to this point. Although, do they ever talk about like how exactly they built the spheres or transported the spheres over?
No, but it all still fits together with kind of what we've heard about the circumstances of this whole plot, right? The sphere builders' whole scheme does not line up with the timeline that Space Zuck has relayed to Archer, right? According to Agent Daniels, none of this is supposed to happen. The Xindi don't attack Earth. There's a war that we fight against these sphere builders hundreds of years from this point in the timeline, and the Xindi are part of the Federation by then, but that this is not right. None of this is correct, right? Because whatever they're doing is they can observe these changes in time, they can change the timeline, but because they exist outside of space and time, there's limitations to what they can do and how they can do it, because they can't really interact with our universe effectively.
I'm just saying, I'm curious, like, how they were able to take such a direct hand in our universe that they built these 48 or 53 or whatever spheres. Or like, was there another sucker race that they were able to like mold into like 100 years ago? Because that's when they said
I think they're like forcing them through, kind of like you get that tiny little pebble through. and then you
Mm,
start to like pierce at the veil and get a little more pieces in, and then they start to connect together, and you start to make the rip bigger and the tear bigger, and you kind of like
yeah.
slowly get it up on the seams. Like that seems to be what they're doing, and it's rippling through space time in such a way that the thing that should happen in the future is happening now because it doesn't conform to those rules.
So while the badass space battle is going on, Enterprise transports over the Mako strike force of what, 4 people?
Yeah, to one of the reptilian ships that has um 5 people, and it has no, you're right. It's 4 Makos and then Hoshi.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4 Makos onto a reptilian ship where Hoshi is being held captive. And it's Hayes, the lady who gets her ass kicked all the time, and then two guys.
We've seen these guys a lot. There's some cool Tonfa takedowns. Someone gets fucking like snapmared or something.
Oh yeah.
Some grenades are getting tossed around. Eventually, they find Hoshi. She's laying knocked out on the floor. They're too deep in the hull. They can't transport out. They got to go back to their extraction site. Unfortunately, the sphere builders have decided to intervene. They've pumped space garbage all over the place. There are some hellacious explosions. I loved watching the aquatics ship blow up and like all of the water tanks just crack and vent out into space. I'd like to see some
And then
space rails.
freeze because it hits space.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Brilliant. An incredible effect for the time.
Enterprise gets dinked pretty hard, enough to knock the transporter offline. So Trip has to beam people out in 2-man batches. He's got to clear the buffer. They get Hoshi out first, then they get some more people, then someone else gets shot, and by the end, it's Hayes there solo. And Hayes makes the dumb rookie mistake of, instead of staying in his fortified location, just waiting that extra 2 seconds, he's going to fall back around a corner where we get a pretty brutal shot of him getting shot right as he gets transported. And it's a nice subversion of expectation, because usually when you get this scene, the guy beams over, is like, oh, wow, man, I almost died. But the beam had already passed through him as he was transporting. So he comes back in wounded, and it is gruesome.
Like you said, it's you think he's about to get away, the beam out is happening, and they time it just right that he gets tagged right before he dematerializes, and so he rematerializes with a gaping chest wound. We see him in sick bay. We know what this is. Lights are low. Phlox has got a real grim look on his face. Reed is there. He's coughing up blood. He's telling him, I'm ready for duty. Put me back in, coach, And he's asking, is Hoshi all right? Yeah, she's fine. You did your job. You did it well. All, Semper Fi, we did it. Like the Marines brought the captive home, and with his last breath, he's like, "All right, Reed, this is the next person. This is the next man up to lead the team, get the job done." And
What he
then,
needed to be was like, I killed your mother. Like, wait, what? You killed my mom's dead and you killed her. Here's a whole new season 4 plot. You can live after all.
oh, the defib worked. Like, we got to interrogate you now.
The defibrillator effectiveness is directly correlational to the amount of conflict and drama that could be generated by that person surviving.
So we find out that after the Zindi Death Star has escaped, the only ship that can catch it is Dagra's ship, because Dagra's ship is the only one fast enough to make up ground in the space time butthole. So whatever they're going to do, it's no longer direct confrontation. They're just going to have to board it and try to blow it up from the inside. But meanwhile, Enterprise itself actually has to fulfill their other end of the bargain, because the fucking amphibian or the aquatics are like, we're the manatee people. We were promised destroyed spheres. The Enterprise, go destroy the spheres. Like, it's what you promised. Go do it now.
This is a very important scene. This is real birth of the Federation shit here, because now this is the first time that we are seeing a legitimate cross-species extinction threat, where the human captain of the Starfleet ship has to say, is my world worth more than other people's world? And what does our diplomatic word mean? And I did, in fact, promise to get this taken care of. there could have been some pushback of like, hey, let's kill the Death Star first, like we were supposed to, and then we'll come back and do this. But the fact that Archer's willing to say, this thing's en route to go blow up my homeworld, but we are still going to make good on our promise, is a real big deal. They could have had like Trip or someone else be like, hey, here's pushback, we need to stay with it, and Archer come out and say, no, we need to be true to our word, this and that. But it being an unspoken series of events, I think was the better way to relay what's going on here, especially since it's all going to boil down to the same thing, which is catch up to the Death Star and blow it up from the inside. Whether it's the Enterprise or, in fact, a faster ship, we can kill two birds with one stone here.
And making it a matter of only Dagger's ship can go fast enough to get to the Death Star does make for a nice, clean, sort of fact-based break here. Because, like, now it's like, okay, well, if the Enterprise can't do anything here, it might as well go solve the other problem, right?
Right.
You know, like, okay, well, let me grab some Marines. I'm going to go see if I can save Earth. You guys clean up the rest of this mess, and hopefully this works out.
Now we got, 8-10 Marines left. We're only going to bring 3.
There's none of our prior hotties are on the lineup right now. I guess they're presently wounded and they're in the infirmary. They can't go on missions. So no Israeli hottie, no chick with the see-through top.
Yeah, no Sonya Blade.
Just dudes, right? Just the dudiest dudes you've ever seen.
The Friday Night Lights guys here.
Yeah. The Texas offensive line is all that's left.
But there's a girl involved because Archer goes over to sickbay and sees Hoshi and goes, well, how's she doing? Oh, she's real bad. I got the brain parasites out, but she's all fucked up. Well, she knows what the inside of the ship looks like. I need to talk to her. But Captain, we can't wake her up yet. And Archer looks and is like, since when do I care about anybody being in a bad position? Like, I've woken up every single person that has been laying on this table that you have said I shouldn't wake them up. And she dumped me, so fuck her.
The fact that they're like, she can't be woken up for 2 hours. So it's like, cool, it's going to take us 2 hours to catch up. Put her on Degra's ship, take her out on a fucking stretcher, inform Reed how to wake her up. Like, that's the plan. You say 2 hours, we'll do it in the car. Put her in there.
Reed's a little wunderkind. He can do this. I like Phlox pushing to go, like, the way he goes out of his way to show a preference for Hoshi.
Yeah, and it makes sense. She's his friend, right? Yeah, we've established that.
It's perhaps his best friend on the ship, to the point where their friendship was able to survive her bicycle kicking him in the dick.
Right, and he's got like 8 dicks. She got all of those dicks.
She smashed every single one of those. Archer ultimately says, listen, half the ship is like on death's doorstep. You need to be here fucking doing first aid thing. Like, this is the mission, man. Like, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be happy, but we got to do what we got to do. And right now you got to fucking set bones and put band-aids on here. They pick the 3 fucking people off the Mako team, which again, I think they'd bring everybody, but whatever.
Woods, Romero, and Forbes are the 3 that he picks, which are just great Marine names. Like, those are the dudes. And they're, like I said, they're the starting 3 down linebackers.
I like that Reed's first action in the wake of Hayes' death, as he goes to assemble a team for the most important mission that any of them could have ever had, was to immediately disregard Hayes' dying wish, which was to put Mackenzie in a command role. This fucking guy just doesn't learn. He's just a dick.
No, I will be in a command role. Or Mackenzie's hurt, right? Like with the hotties. Just on the DL right now. Can't really help.
They're trying to catch up, and then we jump over to Dolan on the Death Star, cruising along, trying to get the shit armed. Or no, they've already armed it at this point,
yeah,
right?
No, this is the end. We're at the end of the episode. They take Hoshi, they get onto the ship, the Marines are there, the Enterprise is going to go off and deal with the spheres, and that's it. Get ready for the finale.
And then that's where we have the conversation between what's apparently the Insectoid Counselor, and Dolan, where Dolan.
Not the Insectoid Counselor, Smouldering Catcher Counselor.
Ugh,
Got to respect him right here at the end.
no, because he gets punked, and Smoldering Catcher does not get punked. Maybe that was just that was a stipulation. Like, hey man, we got this character we want you to stand in for, or we got a character we want you to play. And he's like, "Does it die? Does it get punked?" And they're like, "Yes." And he's like, "Well, then you're not allowed to use my face. I'm contractually obligated to never lose or die." I got the same agent as Chuck Norris, and they're like, "Okay, well, here." You can be like Jean Paul. You can be like Jean-Claude Van Damme. You remember Van Damme was actually a Predator in Predator 1, right?
Yeah, and then he got fired
Yeah.
from that. Yeah.
That first costume was miserable too. Very very, I don't know, it's poetic, but I mean that's some intense drama. Like at this point now, Dolan is full rogue. He's killed off his last ally, and in the process, I'm assuming other people saw what happened to some degree. So should have the entirety of the Zindi population gunning for him,
Yeah,
and the
he's
rest of
going all in to like complete this mission and declare himself president of all of the Zindi. And by the way, I have a super weapon, right? Like that's the move. The move is it's mine now. I'm gonna blow up the humans because I'm kind of all in on that one, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna assert my dominance over the rest of the Zindi race.
And I would say there's a significant chance he might have a lieutenant waiting to put a knife in his back who recognizes that the Guardians are the bad guys and no good for the reptilians either, and that Dolan's off his rails and needs to go. So a lot of options on the table for 0 hour to unfold here. With the weapon on its way to Earth, Archer leads a small team to intercept it before it can strike. DePaul leads Enterprise on a mission to destroy one of the spheres in the Expanse. And again, that's under the belief that if they can knock out Sphere 41, it'll collapse the entire grid and render them all inert.
Here we go. Season finale. It's all leading up to this.
Uh-oh, written by Rick Berman, Bran Braga. Can they hold it together?
They hold it together. This is a banger. And we'll see everyone next week for that banger.